The first thing many people forget about World War II is that silence was often more powerful than firepower. Radios failed, batteries died, and entire units found themselves cut off with no electricity, no signal towers, and no guarantee that help was coming. Yet messages still moved across forests, mountains, and bombed cities because soldiers relied on methods that required almost nothing except awareness and discipline. These were not gimmicks or improvised guesses. They were structured systems built from necessity, designed to work when modern technology simply didn't exist. Today, in a world dependent on digital communication, those skills feel almost invisible. But understanding how fighters signaled without power reveals a deeper layer of wartime survival, one built on patience, observation, and clarity. Why visual signaling became one of the most reliable communication tools when electronics failed. When radio silence was required or equipment was destroyed, visual signals carried information quickly without revealing positions through sound. Mirrors, cloth panels, and coded hand movements allowed units to communicate across long distances. Signal mirrors were especially valuable because sunlight could be directed with surprising accuracy. Soldiers were trained to flash short bursts rather than continuous light, creating simple coded messages that could be read by observers using binoculars. A practical way to apply this knowledge today is to understand line-of-sight communication. Even a reflective object like a metal cup or polished surface can send visible signals if aimed correctly. The key lesson is positioning yourself where light travels cleanly, not simply relying on the tool itself. How flag systems and semaphore movements turned simple gestures into structured language. Long before encrypted radios became common, semaphore flag systems allowed trained operators to spell entire sentences through body positioning. World War II units didn't always use full semaphore alphabets, but they borrowed simplified versions for battlefield coordination. Two contrasting cloth pieces could signal directions, warnings, or confirmations without speaking a word. This method worked because it required minimal equipment and could be learned quickly by teams. Modern outdoor enthusiasts can experiment with basic directional signals during group hikes or off-grid trips. Establishing a few agreed-upon gestures before separating from a group can prevent confusion and reduce the need for electronic devices. Why soundless ground markers quietly guided movements without revealing positions? In dense terrain, where visual contact wasn't possible, soldiers often left coded markers using natural objects. A rock turned at a specific angle, a branch lay across a trail, or subtle patterns in disturbed soil communicated instructions to those who knew how to read them. These were not random signs. They followed agreed conventions within units or resistance networks. The strength of this system was its invisibility to outsiders. Applying this principle today means thinking about communication as something that blends into the environment. For example, campers moving between locations can prearrange small trail markers that look natural to others but carry a clear meaning to their group. Morse code, managed to survive because it could be used with almost any improvised tool. Even when radios failed, Morse code was still useful, since it could be sent through flashes of light, simple tapping, or even just knocking on walls. Prisoners of war, for example, famously used tapping systems to share information between their cells, adapting Morse into patterns of knocks that guards often missed. The real takeaway here is that communication systems become truly powerful when they can shift between different forms or media. So, learning just a few essential Morse signals, like distress or acknowledgement, lets you communicate through flashlight beams, tapping on metal, or any kind of rhythmic sound, all without needing any fancy equipment. Why did wartime couriers combine low-tech signals with disciplined timing? Well, not every message could be sent instantly. In fact, in many cases, runners had to move information physically, while signals would confirm safe routes or timing windows. You know, something as simple as a cloth tied to a fence post or a lantern placed at a certain height might indicate whether it was safe to proceed. These signals worked because they relied on predictability, not constant monitoring. Applying this mindset today means really building communication routines instead of just reacting impulsively. For example, establishing fixed check-in times or using visual markers at meeting points can seriously reduce uncertainty when electronic communication isn't available. So, how did camouflage and deception play a role in protecting signal systems from enemy detection? WWII signalers learned pretty quickly that obvious signals could attract unwanted attention. As a result, many techniques focused on blending communication into everyday movement. Take a hat removed and replaced in a specific way, or a door left just slightly open, or even a sequence of ordinary actions. These could all carry hidden meaning. The real lesson here is subtlety. Effective signaling, more often than not, looks completely ordinary to outsiders. Modern survivalists who study this history can practice embedding signals within routine behavior, making sure that communication stays discreet without becoming too complicated. What can modern viewers actually learn from these forgotten methods without, romanticizing the hardship? The greatest takeaway from WWII signaling isn't nostalgia, it's adaptability. Technology makes communication easy, but relying on power sources can create real vulnerability. Practicing low-tech communication skills builds awareness of your surroundings and encourages you to plan ahead. Try learning a few visual signals with a partner, experiment with reflective surfaces during daylight, or set up simple ground markers during outdoor activities. The goal isn't to recreate wartime conditions, but to understand how structured thinking allowed people to stay connected when every modern system failed. So, closing thoughts on why these WWII signal tricks still matter today. Communication without power was never just about clever tricks. It was about resilience and trust between people who understood the same system. We fighters proved that messages don't require advanced technology. They require clarity, preparation, and, above all, discipline. For history enthusiasts and survival-minded viewers, studying these forgotten methods is a powerful reminder that some of the strongest tools are honestly the simplest ones. If you value serious WWII's history and practical survival knowledge, go ahead and subscribe to 0 Hour Survival channel, share this video with fellow enthusiasts, and stay tuned for more deep dives into the skills that shaped an entire generation.